Hello. Hi. Long time no see. Uh, First of all, I haven't made a video intended to be, I don't know, I guess listened to as a podcast or whatever in a very long time. I'm very out of practice. So you're going to sound a lot, you're going to hear a lot of mistakes and all that, filler words like and whatnot, because I need to get back into practice and, the swing of things. Anyway, yeah, I've been traveling a lot. Went overseas. Well, first I drove across the States for a couple months and then spent probably a total of 3 months in Asia, between Japan, Thailand, and Singapore. It was an amazing experience. Learned a lot. Got to see a lot of amazing things. And I may or may not talk more about that and kind of show videos and pictures of that whole trip. But one thing that was really great from traveling, I think it was something I definitely needed for myself. It's that I had a lot of time to think and to write and to really just understand myself, understand where I'm going, trying to figure out what's next for me. At the same time, addressing the past and overcoming personal issues like anxiety and all the stuff that comes with being an artist. Not that I have some kind of profound conclusion or answer on all this, but I'm at the very least seeing things with far more clarity and understanding, and I think that was so worth it. So one thing that happened wherever I went, whether it was Tokyo or Chiang Mai or Singapore or wherever, is I'd spend a lot of time writing, and sure, I was sketching a lot, but I would kind of try to map out what it was that I was thinking, what I was trying to overcome, and I would even draw little stick figures of what what the problems looked like, and it was a bit scattered. Like they would end up in many different sketchbooks because I carried a handful of them. But I compiled them. So I kind of took pictures of all of them and put them in a program called Trello. That's Trello. It's kind of like a project management program where you can organize your projects. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, reason I did that is I can sort of see it all at once, and it gives me a lot of content to just go down the list of topics and themes that I can cover, whether it's on YouTube or future Patreon assignments or whatever it might be. So having said that, I will probably just start with one of them because I've read this comment. I went on Facebook for the first time in a very long time. Does anyone even use that anymore? Let me find it. So, all right, here it is on my screen. It's by Pauline. What is that symbol? I'm so sorry. Is that like an S sound? Oh man. Okay, Pauline V. Anyway, so it's a really good question, and I sort of mapped out my thoughts on it, and I'll break it down because I think it's pretty helpful because it was helpful for me to understand, and it's regarding, seeing artwork and being distracted and discouraged by it. So learning strategy. Okay, so if you want to read that, you can go ahead and pause that and just read it. I figured there's really no point for me to do so because I distilled it here. But here's the kind of bullet points. The problem being is that as an artist, when you're going through your Instagram feed, ArtStation, Facebook, whatever it might be, you see a lot of work, and while it should be inspirational or motivational or excitement because art is a cool thing, it's a positive thing. When others do it, we should be happy. But what ends up happening, and this certainly happened to me, and I understand this, is you start feeling things like envy, you feel discouraged, losing passion, definitely frustrated from seeing their work, comparing yourself and where you are to their accomplishments. And I think that's related to a self-worth issue, and I'll talk more about that later. And part of that is, especially if you're on the journey of trying to make it, whether it's make it as a professional or beyond, or just make it to an art school, or not even art school, but whatever it is. But you need to know where you are. And so there is comparison, and it's good to know where you are in terms of, that's how much more I have to work in order to understand, painting or values or perspective. But it can also be a detrimental thing. And that's, again, I'll talk more on that in a moment. being overwhelmed. Now, and then this is sort of branching out to a different idea, is, are we overwhelmed because there are so many paths, like so many options? Like, do you want to, those people are doing concept art like this, and those people aren't doing concept art. They're doing illustrations, and they're doing this kind of characters. And, oh, but this person's just doing stickers and selling art at booths at Comic-Con. And so it's like, what is it that you're supposed to do? What's the right answer? Like, there's too many options, or am I even doing the right one? And how can I know? And so that's an issue regarding finding your own path. But let's see. Then she talked more about self-esteem and self-worth deficit from comparing, feeling small in comparison. That's a huge one. And then she mentioned that, well, we know what the solution is, and I'll try to address this again momentarily. And we hear it all the time. It's like, well, you don't compare yourself to other, let's say, successful, famous artists in terms of, oh, they're so much better than me. What's the point? It's more that you could see where they are as a sort of bar to reach, but the better solution is to instead, sure, understand that, study the masters, but compare where you are now to where you were yesterday. And that small increment, even if it's just 1% better than when you were yesterday, that's what you're looking for. Because if you add those up, you eventually you start to learn the skill of comparing your current self to yesterday and not making it a sad, depressing thing. And then you get better at that. So anyway, I think I got off track there a little bit. Anyway, so there's the issue of ego, validation, and being accepted because we're social creatures. I will talk about that as well. Fear of failure. Cool. All right. So if we just go back to the beginning of this, it all stems from being exposed to and seeing. I need to make sure this is actually recording, because yesterday I tried to record this exact thing, and okay, good, we're good. Yeah, there was a problem yesterday, but again, so this let's say problem activates or is triggered by being exposed to or seeing art that is competent, celebrated, loved, good. And it shows up in the feed, and it's almost like a constant intimidation for some, right? But, okay, so why did those things show up in your feed? Well, let's look at it this way. You and I, other people, etc., we have favorite things, right? And it's like, in this case, it's art. They happen to be art that you happen to prefer more, because it's like you might like the content or the style or the painting approach, whatever. The fact is you like it. And so those things usually have good qualities. Therefore, other people also like them too. And because of that, those things rise to the top and are celebrated. Fair enough. I like it. You like it. We all like it. How cool is that? In a way, it's a celebration. And so what ends up happening in every domain, whether it's art or music or, I don't know, gardening, whatever, things that are, let's say, of good quality end up rising to the front page of things or the headlines. Now, so having said that, this is sort of what it looks like. I just took random images and blurred them to represent, oh, this is art that's celebrated and loved. And it's by amazing artists, amazing art. It's impressive. It's admirable. They're the favorites. They have followers, views, likes, and everyone's like, wow, I wish I could do art like that. Oh, this is what I'm going for. And then if you look at the whole vertical chart, it's like at the top is the best of the best, in terms of natural, in a way, democratic process, because, if you like something, you like it, and other people like it too. So yada, yada. And the thing is, like, when that's up there, those artists may have spent their entire lives getting that good, or maybe there's some really good 16-year-old that pisses everyone off. I don't know. But whatever the reason, whether it's hard work, natural talent, or they just had more convenient upbringing where they have, a teacher that's a next door neighbor that was very supportive, whatever it might be, they got there. And you might be starting out So in terms of skill or portfolio or whatever, you're kind of in the starting out position, like everyone. Because even these people, one way or another, started out, right? And you could see this as something that represents any domain, whether it's sports or music. I don't know. I'm not going to keep repeating that line. So as we mentioned before, knowing where you are on this chart is important because, it could be a good milestone, like a landmark, to be like, okay, well, let's make a new layer. Those are my brushes and the description. Let's say you start out here. Whoops. This is you. Do. And then you start practicing. A few weeks later, you're here. And then you're here. And then you're there. And then once you're here, maybe this is like a few years into your learning journey, you look up here and you're like, oh, right. Okay, well, that's frustrating because, it's discouraging. You might want to give up since others are already ahead. They're loved, they're admired, and I'm still only here. And it makes you feel small. And technically speaking, yeah, you're in a way behind. And if you measure, you could say, well, look at this distance. What's the point? I don't feel encouraged. I just feel like I don't know where I belong, yada, yada. So this, I guess, distance or discrepancy, whatever you want to call it, is the thing that makes us feel, I guess, all these things that we mentioned over here. Losing passion, discouraged, and being overwhelmed. And it's a nightmare. So the thing is, there's a certain point that we're all assuming that we're chasing, and it's this holy grail line of being validated and accepted. So I didn't keep it on a different layer. Hold on. So it's like once you pass this line of like, okay, you're the one, you're finally the amazing artist, you're finally the impressive one, you're finally the one with many followers and the comments that say, oh my God, amazing, it's so inspirational, I want to be like you one day. And then it's like, we think that once we get that, we're good. And you'll especially want that feeling and that being validated and accepted if you were, as a kid, left out or ignored or sort of, I don't know, maybe you weren't really fitting into social groups at school, which is kind of like me. So like, that's that. So that holy grail. And let me tell you, as someone who really, really desperately wanted that feeling for a very long time to be finally accepted and validated, it never, ever gets, that void never gets filled because I hit 200,000 subscribers recently, which, by the way, thank you, welcome aboard to anyone that's new. And I didn't even have videos. Just like I was at 180,000, and it just kept growing anyway without me posting. So like I'm very thankful, but it was never enough. Like I was always finding ways to convince myself that it's not enough. And I have to still prove myself. I still need to prove myself for my art career, my portfolio, whatever. That was definitely a problem, and it was tied into my self-worth. And well, I can say now that feeling is mostly amazingly gone from this kind of introspective traveling and writing, because I understood certain things about self-worth that I'll talk about down over here. So anyway, seeing that amazing art, it can be an inspiration, a guide, setting the bar, whatever, or it can be a distraction, a deterrent, and discouragement. Seeing it, because what it does essentially is it becomes like a judge. It judges you. It's like you're down over here and it's like, well, we're so much more than you, like you suck and you're just here. And that's kind of the feeling you get, right? So you feel ashamed, inadequate, humiliated, envious, and resentful. And you might come up with questions like, why is it so easy for them? How come they got it? How come they had the convenient route? Or how come they had very, very supportive, rich parents that sent them to art school or whatever it might be? I think this might be going off track of what some of the things that she was talking about. But I digress. You feel frustrated, disappointed, this feeling of I'll never get there. And this still keeps, from my understanding, I'm not a professional psychologist or clinician or anything like that, but from my understanding, this is what helped me, so maybe it will help you too. If you have low self-worth and your upbringing, you didn't have encouragement and positive support, that's the part of yourself that you have to work on. Because without feeling high self-worth, and actually I think I have a page from my sketchbook that I wrote. So I'll analyze these in a moment as well. If you don't address your self-worth, you will always feel this constant need and want this being accepted or validated, or to finally prove yourself to be in this circle or whatever. So, and then because the problem is the conclusion you have if you do have low self-worth, it's that I'm only worthy of being loved and accepted only if I'm the best. And that's the kind of sad problem that causes things like perfectionism. It's like, I have to be perfect. I have to be the best. I have to be up there. Otherwise I won't be accepted, or I feel like my worth is low, right? And it's like, you might have had a really horrible upbringing in a childhood where people bullied you. Like I was certainly bullied. They made fun of me for being different, and I spoke multiple languages, and I was I didn't fit in entirely. Like I've managed to survive and found my way, but it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. So anyway, right, where was I going with that? The key is to understand that even though your artwork is, let's say, not amazing and desired and celebrated and viral and retweeted and all that stuff, even though it's not that, it doesn't define your self-worth. And this isn't really something we're told, because like we come to sort of seemingly rational, but they're not, conclusions that I'm only valuable as a person and an artist if I'm up here, right? And that discrepancy, especially here, is discouraging. So anyway, so just because you're on your own journey and it doesn't look like what is celebrated, like quote unquote the best art out there, it doesn't mean you're unworthy. So it just means that you are at a different part of your journey. And you have a choice to either be discouraged, and you have all the reasons to, fair enough. It's like, yeah, well, they're better. They might even be younger, or they have better reference. I don't know, whatever reasons you might have. So you can choose that route, or you choose the route of, hey, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to understand that the goal is self-acceptance, and it's actually okay to not immediately be the best, the most admired, the most loved. And like being okay with that, that's one of the hardest things to overcome, because it's like, especially for me, it's like I thought I was kind of in order to attain being accepted, it's like I thought I had to prove that I can paint like those guys, or stuff like that. And so I'm going to get to envy in a moment, because that's, I think, a pretty dangerous one. But I did want to cover what I had here. So, okay, I think I was in Thailand when I sketched this out, or wrote this. Sorry if it's not easy to read. I have this sloppy handwriting. But I sort of imagined it as a game. These are like health bars. Ignore that sketch there. But the one on the left is low self-worth. The one on the right is high self-worth. And my question was to myself was like, what, for your self-esteem or how you feel about yourself and your work, what's the best way to cultivate the one on the right? And so it's like at an early age, especially if you have kids or you plan to have kids, not that I'm a parent, but from my understanding, it's important to emotionally encourage the child, or if it was you, and allow them to understand that they're accepted and they can grow and do great things, as opposed to the opposite, the thing that would destroy the child's self-worth or your own self-worth, is emotional abuse, to make the child doubt themselves, to be discouraged, and for the parent or the friends or siblings to be emotionally distant, distracted, ignoring the child during development, right? So, and as an artist, it's like, it's very crucial that this is something addressed for creativity, because you don't want to tie low self-worth to your creative process. You know, it should be a natural expression that's not hindered by, oh, well, I'm doing my creative thing so I can finally be accepted, because that is not the purpose of art. Okay, so another way that to cultivate that kind of high self-worth is to reward and encourage positive development. In this case, the reward means some kind of acknowledgement, you know, but also coupled with encouragement to keep going and growing, and say, hey, there's you're doing great, and there's so much more that you're going to learn. Keep going, as opposed to like, hey, this is amazing, you did it, because you don't want to just stop there. But it's about uplifting, and whenever the person fails, and by the way, this is how I teach my like classes if I have students. Like if something's not working out, I feel like it's my job to ensure that, hey, it's not a punishable offense. It's okay. You're fine. And so I try to encourage and not punish, right? To develop strength, not self-doubt. And so it's the job of the teacher or the parent to be understanding. And so the opposite of that, again, to ignore, to dismiss, not rewarding any effort, not acknowledging any effort, being emotionally distant. And when failures happen, the wrong thing to do would be to respond with rejection, anger, tyranny, like, you know, yelling and being disappointed, punishing, and making the person feel nothing but self-doubt. So these are the two columns, and they're kind of extremes from each other, but I was just trying to, for myself, I don't know if this is accurate. Surely there's a psychologist out there that could take a look at this and be like, well, it's missing a couple things here and there, but, you know, but whatever. So in a way, sure. If you're on the left side where it's like, yeah, I didn't get any of this encouragement or support or positive reinforcement, sure, fine. It's the fault of the people who brought you up. But that doesn't mean you can just blame those people and walk away and say, look, it's their fault. See, look, my victimhood is justified. That's not the right path, because it's your responsibility to strengthen yourself, to forgive and move on, and tackle the world on your own, develop your own community and support groups and you know, art friends or whatever. So not playing the victim, that's the goal. Crying and pointing fingers actually does not yield, what did I write here? Anything. Even if it's someone's fault. What else did I write? So the actually brave thing to do is to acknowledge the way things were, accept it, process it, and find a way to forgive the people, because they're not gods or demons. They're just people just like you and me, so that you can let go and move on. It's like transcending it by accepting it. And it's like, I thought this is a pretty direct analogy. It's like unhooking the sandbags from the hot air balloon so you can take off. And I drew a hot air balloon, and it's like, imagine the balloon's going in the direction that you want to go or that you think you want to go, but this giant, like, boulder sandbag is your emotional, let's say, I don't know, maybe resentment towards the life or your scenario or circumstance that made you the way you are. It's holding you back, and you can certainly keep it. Maybe you like feeling the hatred. Maybe you like justifying your victimhood, of you know, not having been, I guess, set on a path that's as easy as other people. But it'll just always weigh you down. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other person suffers. It just doesn't work. There was another one. Oh, this was pretty good. Because this is, although I'm explaining this, this is exactly what I was feeling like when I did this page. And this is, I think, this was in Thailand. This is pretty much what I was talking about. So what it felt like when I was doing art was that here's me, or what was me. It's like I was presenting this platter of art, and it was like, this please accept me. Please give me the approval, the praise, the validation, the likes. Just, I just need it. And because I don't feel like I'm valuable. Right. And it's like having all my energy trying to offer that, all the while ignoring what I really wanted to do or really wanted to say, because all of this stuff here is what I thought other people wanted. And it turns out there really was no person on the other side. There's no jury of judges. There's no one actually there. It's just kind of the emotions that were in my head. In my, I guess, heart, whatever. Then I realized this is the wrong equation. This is the wrong game. It's an attempt to fill a void by getting praise and approval from people that don't actually exist. And maybe they do exist, but that's, again, the wrong equation. And what it felt like was everything I would do just kind of just was scattered here on the floor. And I'm up here on this podium, and I blurred out the names of other artists because I didn't want to whatever. I have my reasons. So these artists are being celebrated. They're praised, and it's much like the chart I made earlier with the thing. So what this represents is this top part up here, right? And it's like whenever I saw that, I felt all those things of feeling like that I wanted to be that, right? And it's funny. It's like some could argue, like, dude, Med, like, look at your Instagram, like, look at your art. People love it. Like, you're not exactly down here, right? So I don't know, but I still felt it anyway. So go figure. And I hated playing that game. And at the time, I didn't know how to stop. And I think the feeling is definitely activated when others are celebrated or praised. And it's like this feeling of, oh, they're doing it the right way, and I'm not. Maybe I should just do what they're doing. I should draw what they're drawing. I should use the pencils they're using. And maybe then I'll finally be up here. Or maybe I'll finally feel like I'm up there. And it's like a kid needing attention, like competing with their friends or siblings for attention from whatever dogmatic authorities are abound. Let's see what else. I hope I didn't get too off track here from the original question, but this is what my brain looks like when I'm breaking down thoughts and ideas. And it's more of like a, I guess, hypothesis. I can't really claim that this is some kind of scientific answer, but rather, look, this is what I thought, this is what helped me, and here's me moving forward. Excuse me. So going back to all of this, one of the main things that you feel here, that I felt here, is envy. So let me talk about envy for a moment. And I felt this. I felt extremely envious and resentful, like hatred, just like towards other artists who were more famous or celebrated for. And I felt this for a long time. It's like people who had more followers or more viral videos or viral whatever, or things that garnered them attention and praise, and I did not get that attention and praise. It goes back to just being a child, like being the kid that wanted more attention than the other kids, right? Even after I hit hundreds of thousands of followers, that feeling didn't go away. We talked about that already. At least not until I realized why I felt envious, and it was because of low self-worth. So the question was, why do they get attention and admiration? I need that to be me, not them. I need to be constantly validated as being worthy. Please, please. Right? So it's like this begging, this feeling. It was just miserable. Like, that's not what art's supposed to be about. It's not what the creative process is. Like, that's the wrong kind of fuel to put into your creative process. This whole like, I'm going to make this drawing so that I can finally be accepted. No. You do art as an authentic expression of the things that grip you and make you feel like you're engaged in the, I guess, mental flow. And while you're doing it, like, time flies by, and like, that's art. And happy to say that that's what it's been like for me in the last, I guess, month, 2 months after this long introspective journey, right? So anyway, because for some reason that praise, the likes, the thumbs up is kind of like a momentary compensation to fill that void of self-worth. So that lack of self-worth. And yeah, there is still some of that. I'm still sort of working on it, but I've got it down. Like, I get it now. So moving on. So the key isn't to hate those people or find faults in them or bring them down. It's instead to understand your own self-worth and work on yourself from the ground up. So for me, it's like I wanted to really understand myself in terms of, well, okay, what do I think of myself really? And on the surface, it was, well, I'm not good enough yet. I want to be praised like those other people, blah, 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 blah. But when I looked at it objectively, looking at numbers, statistics of like whether it's art or followers and all that stuff, I'm like, okay, well, there's evidence to suggest that I am not too bad. So like, and that's kind of a tricky thing to say because obviously not everybody has tons of followers and likes and stuff, but that's still not the point. I guess I had to go back and find the one statement to really kind of wrap it all together. And that's you as a human are worthy of being accepted regardless of whether you have millions of followers or what, or, you don't need to prove yourself. Now, I mean, if you're like obnoxious and annoying and people just don't like you, maybe you should work on that. But in general, if you're just a decent person, try not to tie your numbers to what you feel as a person in terms of how valuable you are to the world, right? So, maybe that's stemmed from being rejected by your parents, friends, social circles, and school, and that empty feeling of wanting to be accepted. I think that's what is the cause here. To go back to the original question, it's that wanting to be accepted into, because we're social creatures. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just understanding that it doesn't really take what you think it takes in terms of, I've got to be the best. Let's see, what else did I write? Yeah, and so it makes you resentful and you become hateful and bitter with something like art that otherwise is supposed to be enjoyable. It's supposed to be a great process. And I don't know, I guess that's sort of my conclusion. Your self-worth is usually defined by... Okay, whatever. There's this other thing that I had written out. Desperate hope for being good enough is not the right fuel for creativity. Instead, let yourself be taken by something. Music, stories, actual experience. And when you're in that experience, when you're in the zone, when you're feeling the music, then make the art. Transfer that into the art. And when you're trying to do that, if that's when those, let's say, negators or naysayers or invalidators try to come into your thoughts and say, you're not good enough. You didn't go to art school. You don't have as many followers as other people. You can't draw that. You're not going to do an amazing drawing, especially for the first time. Like, when those thoughts come up, they're horrible. Of course. Of course they're horrible. But as they come, you have to address each one. And it's a very rigorous psychological process, but it's taking me a long time, and I spent the last 2 or 3 years doing that. And I got to say, I'm feeling so free compared to where I was 2 or 3 years ago. I'm living proof that if you take the time to address the things that are holding you back, much like this hot air balloon. Where is it? If you take the time to, because I only drew one, but in reality, there's like 1,000 of them. But you have to take the time to look at each one, find out the origin of each thing holding you back, and look at it again as a or older, more mature person, and to overcome it. So that is my thoughts. Thanks, Pauline, for letting me make a public video about this. And sorry if it was, maybe it wasn't what you were asking about, but hopefully that is helpful, at least to somebody out there. If there's at least just one person that this helps, then I'm fine. I'm satisfied. Because I would hope that, you know, if I was ever in a position again like this, that if somebody did understand it and I heard what that they went through the same thing, it would have helped me. So hopefully it helps someone else. Okay. Where are the memes at? I gotta balance the seriousness with jokery. Anyway, you know, I do look forward to more stuff. You know, I started getting excited about actually making content again, so that's really good, and I look forward to seeing whatever happens. But aside from that, hope that was helpful. If you like this video, go ahead and just kidding. I'm glad. I'm grateful. Thank you. I will see you next time, because I got another video regarding trailblazers and what it means to kind of follow different paths. So stay tuned for that. Have a good one.